Hello, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolute titan of a book, Douglas Hofstadter's Pulitzer Prize winner, Gödel, Escher, Bach. Now, you may have heard it's a bit of a challenge to get through, and you're not wrong, but it's all built around one single, beautiful, and totally mind-bending idea that ties together the worlds of logic, art, and music in a way you've never seen before. So it all kicks off with a mystery. And it's captured perfectly in this famous piece by M.C. Escher, Drawing Hands. You see two hands, right? But look closer. The left hand is drawing the right hand, but at the exact same time, the right hand is drawing the left. They're literally creating each other. It's impossible, a visual paradox, and it forces us to ask a really deep question. Yeah, how can something come from nothing? How can a system just pull itself up by its own bootstraps? And believe me, this isn't just a fun puzzle for artists. It's a question that has kept mathematicians, composers, and philosophers up at night for centuries. And that's where Gödel, Escher, Bach comes in. Douglas Hofstadter takes us on this incredible journey to find the answer. His whole idea is that the impossible loops in Escher's art, the endlessly rising melodies in Bach's music, and the world-changing theorems of Gödel's logic, they're all just different reflections of the same core concept, what he calls an eternal golden braid. So, what is this hidden pattern? What's the secret that connects all of them? Well, the central idea, the key to the whole thing, is what Hofstadter calls a strange loop. Okay, so think of it like this. Imagine you're climbing a staircase. You go up one step, then another, then another. But then, somehow, impossibly, you find yourself right back on the very first step you started on. That's a strange loop. It's a system with different levels, a hierarchy, that gets tangled up in itself, where the top level suddenly, paradoxically, loops back to the bottom. And here's how Hofstadter himself puts it. He says it's that unexpected paradoxical return that really defines the loop. It feels like it shouldn't be possible, like a logical short circuit. But the cool thing is, once you know what you're looking for, you start seeing these loops absolutely everywhere. To really get a handle on this, Hofstadter doesn't start with, heavy-duty math. He begins in places that are much more intuitive for us, the worlds of art and music. M.C. Escher was, he was the absolute master of the visual strange loop. We've already seen Drawing Hands, which is this perfect little two-step loop. But then you have something like Print Gallery. You've got a young man in an art gallery, and he's looking at a picture of a town. And in that town is the very gallery he is standing in. The picture literally contains itself. It's an infinite spiral, a perfectly closed, impossible loop that just breaks your brain. All right, now let's jump in a time machine and go back to 1747 to the court of King Frederick the Great of Prussia. The legendary composer Johann Sebastian Bach is visiting. The king, who's a pretty good musician himself, decides he's going to test the old master. So he plays this really tricky, complex musical theme and challenges Bach to improvise a 3-part fugue on it, right then and there. And Bach, of course, just nails it. But the king wasn't done. He then asked for an even harder 6-part fugue. Later, Bach delivered. And buried inside this masterpiece, his musical offering, was a piece Hofstadter calls the endlessly rising canon. And it is a musical strange loop. It starts in one key, C minor, and then it starts to shift upwards, modulating through a series of other keys. You feel like you're climbing higher and higher. But after exactly 6 of these shifts, it magically, seamlessly returns to C minor, just 1 octave higher, perfectly positioned to start its infinite climb all over again. And get this, Bach even added a clever little nod right in the margin of the music. He knew what he'd done. He'd created an auditory illusion, a piece of music that feels like it could climb forever. It's a perfect strange loop for your ears. Okay, so with the loops of Escher and Bach in our back pocket, we're ready. We're ready to tackle the most abstract, and honestly, the most important loop of them all, the one discovered by the logician Kurt Gödel. So at the beginning of the 20th century, mathematicians had this huge dream. They wanted to create a perfect, complete system for all of logic, a system that could prove every true statement about numbers and be totally 100% free of contradictions. The only problem was, logic seemed to operate on its own level. A statement like 2 + 2 = 4 is about numbers. It's not about logic itself. There was a strict hierarchy and no way for math to actually talk about math. And this is where Kurt Gödel comes in with this just absolutely revolutionary insight. He figured out that if he assigned a unique number to every single symbol and every statement in a formal system, he could make numbers represent the statements. This trick, which we now call Gödel numbering, was like a secret code. It allowed statements in number theory to be read on two levels at once, as statements about numbers and as statements about other statements. He cracked the code to make math talk about itself. So what did Gödel do with this new superpower? Well, he was clever. He didn't just create a simple paradox like, this sentence is false. That's too easy to break. Instead, he very carefully constructed a mathematical statement that, when you decoded it using a system, essentially said, this statement cannot be proven within this system. He built a sophisticated, self-referential strange loop right in the heart of mathematics. Now just think about the consequences of that statement for a second. If you can prove it, well then your system is flawed. It's inconsistent because you've just proven a statement that says it's unprovable. But if you can't prove it, then this statement is true, which means there is a true statement that your system is too weak to prove. So your system is incomplete. Either way you slice it, the dream of a perfect all-knowing system of math was completely shattered. Gödel proved that in any powerful logical system, there will always be true things that are just beyond its reach. What Gödel did, really, was use the intense rigor of mathematics to prove the limits of rigor itself. By turning math back on itself, he created the ultimate intellectual strange loop, proving that no system can ever fully contain its own truth. So, here we are. We have these three incredible minds, a logician, an artist, a composer, and they all independently stumbled upon and explored this same deep pattern of self-reference. But this is where Hofstadter makes his final, most brilliant move. He turns the lens away from their work and points it directly at us. He shows us how Gödel's theorems, Escher's drawings, and Bach's canons are all just different facets of the same fundamental structure. And then the book itself starts to act like a strange loop, with its chapters and dialogues playfully referencing each other and mirroring the very ideas they're talking about. And this all builds to his most breathtaking idea, that the I inside your head, your sense of self, is the most profound strange loop of them all. I mean, what is consciousness if not a system that is aware of itself? A system that can think about thinking. Think about it. Your brain is, at a low level, just a physical system. It's a collection of billions of neurons firing based on the laws of physics. And yet, somehow, out of all that low-level hardware, this high-level phenomenon emerges. You. Your thoughts, your feelings, your sense of self. And here's the loop. This high-level you can then reach back down and cause changes in the low-level hardware. The idea of raising your hand causes the actual neurons to fire that make your hand go up. A high-level abstract thought becomes a real cause in the physical world that created it. And that's the final provocative question Hofstadter leaves us with. Is our sense of self, is it just an illusion? A useful story that a system tells itself once it gets complex enough to represent itself inside itself? Are we the ultimate strange loop, an eternal golden braid of neurons, symbols, and perception, endlessly creating the feeling of I? It's a loop that might be impossible to ever truly step out of, but it is endlessly fascinating to think about.